Hello, welcome. I'm Jennifer Firestein, Associate State Director for AARP Michigan. We're glad you're joining us for AARP's Virtual Learn a Latte. We've shifted all of our in-person events to a virtual platform, and so we invite you to grab your own coffee or latte. I've actually made up a green smoothie instead of a latte today, so since we're talking about plant-based foods, I'm going to be drinking this. So I'm going to kick off today's Learn a Latte with just a little bit of a food riddle to kind of lighten things up, and I'll share the answer at the end. So here's the question. What do you get when you combine melon and broccoli? So think about it, and you too, Stacy, and I'll share the punchline at the end. Over the next half hour, we'll share valuable information about the health benefits of eating whole foods and plant-based foods in today's presentation of Beyond Broccoli. If you face health challenges like diabetes or hypertension, a good diet is critical to stay healthy or to get healthy. We know the science and the facts that we are what we eat, but how much do we know about plant-based diets? Throughout today's presentation, if you have a question, please ask it in the comment section and we'll answer the question throughout. We also want to engage with you, so we'll be throwing some questions back at you for you to answer in the comment section. This is being recorded and you'll be able to access it here on the Michigan Facebook page, so you can return to it or you can share it with others. Joining me today is Stacy Gherkin. Stacy is a registered dietitian at the Area Agency on Aging of Western Michigan in Grand Rapids. She grew up in Indiana and went to Purdue University, but she says she has no plans to leave Michigan after being introduced to what she says are the most perfect summers and, of course, the best locally grown fruits and vegetables. She enjoys cooking and has made an effort in her own life to eat less meat and has been mostly dairy-free for about the last 3.5 years. And she hasn't looked back because she's figured out how to make every dessert she wants into a vegan version. Stacy, my family's addicted to dessert, so I do want to hear about that. So why don't you go ahead and kick things off?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am looking forward to sharing some tips and talking about some of the terms that we may be hearing out there these days about a vegan lifestyle or a plant-based lifestyle or whole foods. It's definitely such an up and coming area. And so I want everyone to be able to understand what they're hearing on the news or in the media about this and understand what specifically the research says and how that can translate to older adults, because there are definitely ways we can do it safely. And I want you to have all the tips to be able to do that. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing a little bit about me. Again, I'm a registered dietitian, and my main job at the Area Agency on Aging is to work with congregate and home delivered meal programs. So you might hear of those called Meals on Wheels more specifically. We work with 9 counties around West Michigan. And then I also do teach some cooking classes. I'm hopeful that, again, we can do those in person again someday. I have a series called Conquering the Kitchen that I created, and it started specifically for male caregivers that were taking care of their loved ones and had never been in the kitchen too much. So it was kind of like a kitchen boot camp. But then last year, I actually had my first 4-week series that was completely vegetarian. So that was really excited. I was supposed to be doing another one this month, and I'm hopeful that, again, in the future that we can go back and have some of those in-person classes. We also have our Healthy Aging department at the Area Agency on Aging, so we do have some virtual exercise classes and education options there too. So today, I want to take you through, again, some of the terminology that you may be hearing. We're going to talk about what the research says. I'm going to go over different plant sources of protein, and then we're going to talk about some tips about how to incorporate it into your lifestyle. So if you see the picture that's there on the screen, go back to that one. Yeah. So this may look like a chicken salad, but it's not. So if you have any guesses, please enter them into the chat about what you think that might be. It looks, I mean, I've shown it to a lot of people and the consensus is it's usually chicken, but it's really not. And this was actually something we made in my cooking class. So if you have
Stacy at the end, so we get to guess what that is, and then you'll share it at the end what that is.
Yeah. At the end, remind me when you give us the answer to your riddle that I'm very curious about. Yeah, I will share what that is. All right. So some terms that you might hear. Vegetarian, I think, is something we've all been hearing for a long time. So that's just someone that does not consume any meat products. Vegan is another term that kind of takes it up another notch from just being a vegetarian. So this is a person that eats no meat, and no animal sourced products. So that would be dairy, honey, and eggs. And then when you break dairy down even further, that's no butter, no milk, no cheese. And then another term on top of that would be a plant-based vegan or a whole food vegan. And these are people that really just eat whole foods from plants. So think about veggies, fruits, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. Basically, if it's not a whole food that, they're not going to buy a lot of like crackers or processed boxed food. It's really just going to be taking those categories and layering them together on their plate. If you can see on your screen, I've got a couple pictures of what you might see on packaging to denote that it's a vegan. So it's usually a V with some leaves on it. If you go out to eat, it can be a little more tricky because depending on the restaurant, the menu might have vegetarian and vegan symbols that look kind of similar. So you definitely would want to make sure to ask if you're at a restaurant which one is which. All right, so now that we've got those out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about what the research says about plant-based diets in older adults. So also back in March, I had my first dietetic intern from Grand Valley. I'll give a little shout out to Courtney because I had her do at the time a research project on the benefits of a plant-based diet in older adults. And what we found was that it is a newer area that hasn't been studied a lot, but it's definitely up and coming. And what we did find, though, was there is a decreased risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes from eating a plant-based lifestyle. So cutting out meat, definitely, and then even the vegan lifestyle as well. It can help maintain a healthy weight and can even, what we're learning, protect against certain cancers. What we also found, though, were that there are some things to be aware of. So as we age, our protein needs go up. And so on a plant-based lifestyle, it is very important to make sure that you're getting good sources of plant-based protein in your diet. This is one area that you have to be very intentional about. And there were also some vitamins and minerals that really needed to be aware of and possibly supplement. So vitamin B12, zinc, calcium, maybe even vitamin D. And again, we are going to talk about some of these later. So now I want to move into some different protein options. So again, on a plant-based lifestyle, you have to be very intentional with your protein if you're cutting out the animal sources. So I want to go through some different options that you might see around that you could try. So the first one is seitan. Sometimes people pronounce it a variety of different ways, but this is made from gluten. It can be pan-fried, sauteed, or grilled. The one caveat I have about this one is if you are on a gluten-free lifestyle or just limiting the amount of gluten that you consume, this one would not be for you because it is completely made out of gluten. The next one, and this is actually what the picture is on the screen, is tempeh. So these are fermented soybeans that are compressed into blocks or patties, so you can slice them, you can cook them as well. And a lot of these protein options have a pretty plain flavor on their own, so you need to be adding in sauces and marinades and spices to provide the flavor that you want. Otherwise, your plate might feel kind of boring, and that's not what we want. So if we're switching to a plant-based lifestyle, we don't want you to feel like you're missing out on anything or giving up flavor. We want you to feel, excited about it and that the food is full of flavor and that you're enjoying it. So another protein option, I think a lot of people have heard of these, tofu. So these are curdled soybeans that are pressed into blocks. They take on any flavor that is added to it, similar to the ones we just talked about. And then half a cup of tofu has about 20 grams of protein in it, which is quite a bit. One of my favorite protein options is beans. So there are so many different varieties. If you think about black beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, or garbanzo beans, those are the same thing. They just have a little bit of a different name. Navy beans and more. And the protein content can vary by bean. We made, actually in my cooking class last year, we made black bean brownies one day, and you would have no idea that they were made out of black beans. They were very yummy. There's also, you can make out of chickpeas, you can make like a chocolate chip cookie dip. So there's so many different new options that you can do with some of these meat alternatives as well. The next on the list, we've got some of the grain products. So quinoa is an ancient grain that's rich in vitamins and minerals along with protein. That's what's in the picture on your screen. So it's in there with sweet potatoes and some dried cranberries and some lettuce. And it can be used in soups, salads, and many other dishes. You think about anywhere that you might have rice, you can really substitute in a quinoa, and it's going to have more vitamins and minerals in it. Lentils are another good option. There are a couple different varieties, red and green. There's also brown. One thing to be aware of is that the green variety will hold its shape, and brown too will hold its shape a little bit more when they're cooked, and the red becomes a little more mushy. So it kind of depends on what you want your end product to look like, as far as if you want more of the shape there or if you want them to be a little more soft when they're cooked. Some other options, we've got chia seeds. This one might be a new one for some of you. These are tiny black seeds that become gel-like when wet. They're full of vitamins and minerals as well, and protein, and they can be used in smoothies, baked goods, yogurt, and pudding. These, some of these things I like to add because you don't really even know they're there, but they're adding in the extra protein and they're adding in vitamins and minerals. So they're really important even though they're very small. Another one are green peas. So if you think about, the vegetable that we have on the side, actually they are full of protein, and pea milk is actually a new option that's out there. So they're making some dairy alternative milk out of the peas and adding protein in as well. And then a few more options. I know who probably thought there were so many different protein alternatives out there, but we're coming to the end of the list. So we've got nuts and nut butters. So if you think about peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter, those are all out there. You can even make your own if you like to cook. Rice and oatmeal also do have small amounts of protein in them. Some veggies will also have very small amounts. And then yogurts. There are so many non-dairy yogurts out there right now. The yogurt aisle, I think, is one of the most overwhelming aisles in the grocery store to begin with because there are so many options out there. And so I would just encourage you to try an option or two, buy a couple different varieties, find what you like. But there's never been a better time to go plant-based because there's just so many new products that are coming out every day. There's yogurts made out of flaxseed, coconut milk, cashew milk, almond milk. So lots of different options. And again, milk alternatives, like I just mentioned. Yeah. I do want to touch a little bit on almond milk because I know that's a really popular one. We drink it here at our house as well. And it does have a lot of calcium and vitamin D in it. However, it is not really a good protein option. So if you feel like you need more protein in your milk, almond milk is not going to be the best solution for that. Really something like a pea protein milk or a flaxseed milk with pea protein added is going to be a little better, or a soy milk even.
So Stacey, questions for you regarding the protein. Soy. I've heard conflicting reports over the years about soy, that too much soy can wreak havoc on a woman's hormones. You should eat it organic only. Do you have any information about just some of the science behind soy?
Yeah, soy is, it's kind of like eggs. Like some days it's in, some days they're out. It kind of, depending on what the research at the time is saying, it's all over the place. I think now what we know is that soy can be okay. I definitely think if someone has had breast cancer or other certain types of cancers, they should speak to their doctor about that. But I don't think there's a reason to be afraid of soy milk these days.
And is there anything that's better than another, or does it truly just come down to personal taste and personal preference once you've taste tested different varieties?
I think a lot of it is just personal preference and what you find that you like the most. Because again, we don't want you to feel like you're missing out on a food group if you're giving up regular milk and yogurt. We want you to find something that you are just as excited about.
And there's a question that came in. You mentioned the black bean brownies and the chickpea, I think cookie dough dip. I think that's what it was. Will you be sharing these recipes? Because they sound absolutely fantastic.
They are. I can get those to you, Jennifer, and we can post them later. And I would highly recommend everyone try the black bean brownies. And then let us know in the comments later what you think if you tried them.
We can post the link to that as well. So we can provide that recipe here on our Facebook page.
All right, that'd be great. Some other vitamins and minerals that I do want to quickly talk about. Vitamin B12 is a non-negotiable must supplement on a vegan diet and maybe on a vegetarian diet. And the big reason is because it's found naturally in animal products. So if we're cutting those out on a vegan or a whole food, plant food diet, we really need to make sure that we're bumping up our intake of that through a supplement. It is found in some fortified cereals and grain products as well. And vitamin B12, our brains use it for our brain function, and it's also used for red blood cell formation. And so a deficiency in that can lead to being tired or anemia and just fatigue. So it's important to make sure that if you are going to do a plant-based lifestyle, you do supplement there. Calcium, again, is another one. As we age, our bones definitely need more calcium and more vitamin D. Some options of getting calcium in plant-based foods are green leafy vegetables. I'm sure, Jennifer, in your smoothie that you have a lot of calcium in there. Soybeans are also a good source of calcium, and then some of the fortified non-dairy milk alternatives and yogurts also have calcium in there.
Yeah, this is loaded down. There's a lot in there.
Yeah. We're going to talk in a minute. We're going to talk about smoothies. So I'm glad that you brought one today. A couple other things I just want to mention are vitamin D and zinc. Vitamin D, again, so we live in Michigan, which again is the most beautiful summers, and we can be outside and get a lot of vitamin D through sunlight, which is really the best source of it. But in the fall and the winter here, we might need to be taking a supplement just to make sure that we're getting enough of that in there to keep our bones healthy throughout the years. You know, I love the Michigan summers, and I found the winters are actually not that bad either. My takeaway, the difference between Michigan and Indiana. In Indiana, you might see the ground again a few times through the winter, but in Michigan, it seems like once it snows, you don't see the ground until spring. That was a difference I learned. Zinc, again, is another option that you might need to take a supplement for just to make sure you're getting enough, and you can find zinc in beans and peanuts. So there are a lot of good options if you're doing a plant-based diet on how to get it through food. And again, if you're on a taking a supplement, please make sure your doctor and pharmacist know, just so that everyone has a whole picture about what you are consuming. So now that we've talked about those, and you're thinking, wow, how could I make this change? So I have a few tips for us. We've all heard about Meatless Monday. So we're going to go through each day of the week, and I'm going to give you a tip on how you can make plant-based lifestyle or even a vegan or vegetarian for you. So Meatless Monday, you know, you can turn any of your favorite dishes into a meatless version. For example, you could have, instead of Taco Tuesday, it will be Veggie Taco Tuesday. So in this recipe that you've got on the screen, that is something we also made in my cooking class, and we made veggie tacos, and you can put any veggies that you have around. So I think we had squash and zucchini and tomatoes, and those were all, you know, from the garden. And I think there's probably onion in there as well with some cilantro, and then black beans for our protein source. So again, instead of Taco Tuesday, Veggie Taco Tuesday. For Wednesday, came up with Walnut Wednesday, and that is because nuts can be used to make many sauces and milk alternatives. So cashews, if you've ever heard of a cashew cream, you can soak cashews in water and then use a food processor or blender to puree them, and you can use that in any kind of recipe that would have called for a heavy whipping cream. They're really good in mashed potatoes, because if you think about what mashed potatoes are made with, it's a lot of butter and cream. So I use the cashew cream in there instead. Thursday, we've got Thrifty Thursday, and that's because so many proteins are so affordable. Let's see if I can find you buy a bag of beans at the grocery store, and these are just from Meijer. You can get these for $1 or $2, and you can soak them all and cook them at one time, and then even freeze them and have some in the freezer. I also do like to keep cans of beans around, just because those are easy to grab as well. If you've ever roasted chickpeas, that's good, a really affordable option for a little extra crunch that you can add on to some of your dishes. And then we'll go back to Jennifer. So it's not Fruit Smoothie Friday, it's Fruit Smoothie Wednesday for you, but smoothies are such a good way to add in so many servings of fruits and vegetables. And it looks like with the greens, you've got a lot of veggies in there too.
So you mentioned the beans, Stacey, you mentioned the beans. Is it better to buy the bagged beans dry and then soak them as opposed to the canned beans?
You know, I use both. If you get the canned beans, you need to rinse them very well, but the bag of black beans is like $1 or $2, and it is more time consuming to soak them and then cook them, but you can freeze them. You don't have to use them all at the same time. So I usually do a big bag at once and then freeze them and have several options for later in the year.
Having them dry and then soaking them, you're also avoiding any preservatives and sodium. That's
correct. Yeah. Yeah. So the canned varieties would have more salt, where these are literally just the bean. All right, Saturday. So seeds on Saturday. So there are so many seeds that are available to make plant-based living a little easier. You see on the plate, we've got flax seeds, and that actually can be used as, I've got a bag here. This is rated my fridge this morning. Flaxseed can actually be used as a egg replacement in many dishes. So if you're trying to do a recipe and make it into a vegan, there's an option to do that. And you can add these into your smoothies as well. And then next on the screen, we've got pumpkin seeds. Those are the green seeds. Those are often called pepitas too. You might have heard them called that. And then next to that are the chia seeds. And those are also really easy to add into smoothies and baked goods and yogurt. And then sunflower seeds next to that. And they actually make a sunflower seed butter, like a peanut butter, but it's made out of sunflower seeds. And then the last one, not everyone may be as familiar with that, but those are hemp seeds, hemp hearts. They look like this, the package that we get from the grocery store. And they are pretty flavorless, but they add a lot of protein and vitamins and minerals to dishes. So those are some options that you can add in on your plate to get extra protein in there. And then Sunday, I couldn't decide, so it was a tie, because in my house we have soup Sunday every week. So we reinvent a lot of our favorites with no meat. But the picture on the screen is it's a thick carrot soup that we make with roasted carrots and onions and garlic. And then I also add in some white beans as well when we puree it. And that's just a way I can sneak in some extra protein into that dish. And then I touched on this one earlier, but Spice Sunday. So don't be afraid to try new spices and flavor combinations, something you thought you didn't like before. Maybe with the right recipe, you might be open to it. You know, again, with the black bean brownies, you might have thought, wow, that's really interesting. But after you try it, you might not even know that you're having a black bean brownie. Another one, I really could have probably had one more for Sunday too. It could have been a three-way tie, but salads. You can have so much fun with salads on a plant-based diet when you're adding in the different nuts and seed options too. So don't forget about those. One of my life mottos that I always try to remind myself is that I will never regret a salad. So when I'm debating between what choice I want to make, if I'm eating out or what I'm cooking, that I'll never regret a salad. Along that line, it looks like in the comments, we did get a comment about the brownies, and that is the exact recipe that we made in the cooking class. So thank you. All right, and so it is never too late to start. What we are finding in research about plant-based diets in older adults is that even one small change for the better in your diet can help make improvements in your health. So after listening to this today, if you think, yes, you're ready to go, make a couple small changes, feel comfortable with those, and then move on to another one. If you heard all of these products and you're thinking, oh, wow, this is way too much, these are too many changes, I don't know, I would just encourage you maybe to pick one thing, try some chia seeds and adding those into your cereal, or trying some hemp seeds, and just try one thing, see how you feel, because even a couple small changes will add up to big results in your health. Looks like we have a question about what are the best stores to shop for these items. So I'll do that one first. I think it depends on where you live and what grocery stores you have available. we do a lot of our grocery shopping at Meijer, which I think is pretty available around Michigan. So I don't want you to feel like you have to go to a lot of fancy stores, because the nice part is that this area is so up and coming that many big stores are bringing just huge options of dairy-free alternatives or vegan varieties out there. So we really do probably 90% of our grocery shopping at Meijer, which is where I find a lot of the stuff I've shown you today. And it looks like we've got another question about faux meat options. So the Impossible Burger, I think there's the Beyond Burger. This is kind of a mixed area. It's kind of a hot topic too. And I think what I think is it's great that I think so many restaurants out there are being open to trying some of these new options. Some of them are more highly processed. So if you are doing a true plant-based whole food diet, those aren't going to be for you. What you would probably more do is a black bean burger or black beans instead of some of those. But I love seeing that restaurants are expanding their menu and kind of doing things differently and having so many more options out there for people that might be choosing a plant-based or vegan lifestyle. Do we have any other questions? If you want to put them in the chat, we can.
Yeah, I have a question. So we were talking beforehand, and you were talking about your kids have grown up with a lot of these alternatives, so they don't know the difference. How difficult is it when you have a picky spouse that just doesn't want to adapt to it, or even yourself, where you're so used to having a good cheese that a cheese alternative just doesn't cut it.
Doesn't cut it.
Yeah. So how do you just adapt to the different flavors, textures, the picky eaters in your household?
I think it can take time. I know for me, when I first had to give up dairy, I mean, sour cream was a food group. Like when I had when it was Taco Tuesday in our house, it was like, where is the meat in my taco? Because it was buried under the sour cream. And what I found for me was that adding more salsa on top was a good alternative. So some of it, you just have to find something that will make you happy as a substitute and not make you feel like you're missing out. I think if you have a spouse that's not so excited about the idea, just making, a couple small changes here and there and gradually easing into it. I will say this is not probably something you want to drastically change everything in your diet overnight, because it can feel again overwhelming, and it might make you feel like you feel a little defeated if it's hard to keep up with, because it's definitely more grocery shopping, more cooking, more prepping. So again, make a change or two and then wrap your brain around that, feel comfortable with it, and then add on to that and go from there.
Okay. I had a book years ago called The Sneaky Chef, and it's about hiding food into a meal. So you can like puree cauliflower and add it into a soup, and you just don't taste it. So you can do things like that as well. And I know the recipes that you will share provide those types of tips. So just mimicking the food or hiding it into a recipe is an effective way.
Yeah, and that's what, the carrot soup that we had the picture of, I puree a can of beans in there as well. And that's just because the carrot soup on its own wouldn't have a lot of protein. And I wanted to really pick it up a notch and make sure that I would be having enough protein in that meal. So there's so many different ways you can do that, and really think about on a plant-based diet, it's really just layering your plate with different fruits and vegetables and the nuts and the seeds. So really use all of those components, and you can have a lot of fun, colorful, really pleasant dishes that are going to go a long way in improving your health.
Okay.
If you have any questions, I think my contact information was up on the screen earlier. And I would say if you have questions too, specifically seek out a registered dietitian or with the credentials RD or RDN, just to make sure that you are getting the most accurate, up-to-date information.
So make sure you actually have a professional who can guide you correctly. Okay, Stacy. So we want to know, what was the food? We have Jennifer, who said that she's guessing it was jackfruit. So what was the food that looks like chicken there?
That is jackfruit. So you get a prize if you guess that correctly. So jackfruit is a fruit. And this is a young jackfruit that would be canned in brine, which is how you get it. And it can be shredded. You do need to rinse it very well, because otherwise it can have kind of the salty taste. But once you rinse it, you can use it, barbecue jackfruit. This is a chicken salad, so this might be something you see at restaurants because they are using it as an alternative. It does not have a lot of protein in it, but it can make for a lot of fun dishes out there. So even adding in nuts or seeds would make it a better protein option.
And where would you find jackfruit at the grocery store? Like, is it in the produce section or in the canned section? Like, where would you find jackfruit?
So this jackfruit you'll find in the canned fruit section. They do have it at Trader Joe's regularly and some other grocery stores. I have not seen it at Meijer yet, but I also haven't looked lately, so I can't confirm that one.
Mm-hmm. So Trader Joe's, you know that it's there.
You can definitely get it there.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. So I had the riddle of what do you get when you combine melon and broccoli? Stacy, do you have any guesses on that one?
I don't, and I'm curious.
Okay. So when you combine melon and broccoli, you get melancholy. So we'll close it out with that. So thank you everyone for joining us today. As we mentioned, you'll be able to access this presentation here on the AARP Michigan Facebook page. We have more virtual events coming up. In fact, we've got a signature event coming up this Thursday called My Sisters and Friends. It will focus on conversations around health and wealth among African-American women. And we invite you to click on the event section here on our Facebook page to register for that event and to check out all the other events that we have coming up. You can also visit us at aarp.org/MI for a list of all the virtual events that we have. And next month, we'll be back for Learn a Latte. So thank you, and we'll see you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Stacy.